for it.
Check, check. Ooh,
Make sure my mic's not on.
too much
How are you
bass.
Yeah, they so scared off the other one. Bogdan? I'm Brian.
All right.
Nice to meet you.
Not with this
Thank you.
voice.
It's a tough audience, huh?
No, it's not tough. Yeah, it sounded weird. That's not what I meant.
I appreciate it.
It's a podcast voice, not a singing voice. It's a good podcast voice, not a good singing voice. I'd have to do falsetto the whole time.
I know when I hear this voice, I start to want to sleep.
I'm gonna put you in a trance. You're feeling very relaxed, and you want to give me all your money. When I count to 3, you're gonna open your Bitcoin wallet, and you're gonna send me all of your Bitcoin.
Is that what investigators do?
No, I'm gonna put you in a trance with my meditative voice. All right, well, that was quick. Thank you guys for wrapping up your conversations and making it all the way over to the staging area tonight. So this is our September. I can't believe we're already in September. Our September meetup here for Bob, San Diego. That's the Bitcoin and Open Blockchain. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right.
You did it.
We are still in a bear market, and we only have 3 rows of chairs tonight to make it feel packed. Usually there's standing room only, and we know that's going to come again, but I love seeing all your smiling faces because you guys are the real supporters of the group here. And I want to take a minute to thank all those folks who are here. And also anybody who has, we did forgot to do August, so I apologize for all August birthdays, but any September birthdays out here tonight? Any September birthdays? I know one that's coming up, maybe like tomorrow, perhaps. Oh, we got a birthday. One, we just got one birthday. Oh, we got 2 September birthdays? Really? Oh, wow. 2 September birthdays? They won't even. All right, so happy birthday to Madison and happy birthday to Paul. September birthdays. Edge birthdays. Thanks to Edge for hosting us again as usual. And my name's Chris Groshong. I'm the founder of Coinstructive, and we do crypto fraud investigation work, and we serve crypto financial institutions doing compliance as a service, fun stuff. But we also do some legislative stuff and regulatory stuff. So I have a quick update for you on what's going on with California legislation. 2 bills have been passed by both the Assembly and the Senate, and that means that they are sitting on the governor's desk right now. One of them is, did I hear a boo from somewhere? Yeah, boo. Boo only if he signs them. So the 2 bills are California's AB 39, which is the bit license, essentially. It's a license to make crypto financial institutions and their counterparts to get licenses. So essentially, anybody who's buying and selling crypto now, you're going to need a license, especially if you're doing over I think it's $50,000 in sales in a year. And then the other one is the kiosk bill, which I know I brought up before. That's Senate Bill 401. That bill has actually been amended, and they did increase the percentage from, when it started out at 2, and then it went to 10, and now we got it up to 15, so that's good. But they did not increase the limit for which you can buy per day, which is still remaining at $1,000. A couple weeks ago, I was actually in Portland for a conference called the MTRA, which is a money transmitter conference, and it was basically half state bank regulators and then half people who are into the licensing. And the conversation about crypto was not very positive at the licensing level. But I did find out that Connecticut passed a bill where their limit was $2,500 per person per day. So I've written a letter to the governor. I'm getting ready to send it. I'm not going to read it to you tonight, but I'm going to put a template together, and we're going to host it. We're going to put it on the meetup site, and you guys will be able to download the PDF or the document and use that as a template to send to the governor if you're interested in keeping kiosk businesses in California alive. So the $1,000 limit will basically force them to shut down, and they're not really budging on it. So I'm hoping that with the points that are basically made in the letter, that it will force the governor to take a different stance and veto the bill. I don't think there's too much that can be done, though, on California AB 39. It looks like it is probably going to go to pass. Now, the problem is that they've intertwined these two bills that said that if one passes, then so should the other, and vice versa. And I think that could actually be detrimental to the bills themselves, because I think that AB 39, the bit license bill, is actually probably should go through because there is a need for licensing for some of these institutions, whereas other ones, I think maybe there's, well, when I say other ones, other financial institutions like the MSBs, like crypto ATMs and such, which don't need licenses, should still stay without licenses. So there's some things that are good and there's some things that are bad, and that's how the legislation goes, unfortunately. So we have two things on the governor's desk, and I'm hoping that they don't both get signed. So I will give you guys an update. You'll see a post on the meetup group about that. Question? Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to?
People on YouTube can't hear you.
The full number of full nodes in the world was 10,050 in 2020. So as we speak right now, there's 16,574. So we've almost doubled, or getting closer to doubling, the full nodes again. So the network's still growing tremendously, regardless of the bear market.
Yeah.
Amen.
That's a good point. Thank you. All right. So lots of good stuff going on in crypto, and lots of good stuff happening. So I want to bring up Madison next to talk about Edge and introduce our guest.
All right. Thank you, Chris. It's always fun to hear about the legislation when you don't have to be the one digging to find out everything that's happening. So I definitely appreciate the updates. Totally, right? Well, I wanted to welcome you to Edge. You are at Edge. This is our HQ. We're super lucky to have a beautiful office and to share it with you all. It is total pleasure to have you here. And as you can tell, we're half office, we're half meetup space. So, this is a big part of what we love to do is just have you all here. So thanks for coming. We are a self-custody multi-asset exchange platform. We allow users to buy, sell, trade, hodl, stake their crypto, all while holding their own keys. We require no personal information, and it's a super easy sign-up process. So easy that you could do it tonight in probably less than a minute. And if you sign up tonight, I will send you $5 in Bitcoin. So that's a pretty good deal. I know. Yeah, Daniel could send you $5 in Bitcoin. He's right here. He works at Edge, and so can Paul.
We double dip?
So you can only get 5 total. You can't just keep getting. No. I also want to thank our sponsors. Bitrefill sent us some really cool swag. I have T-shirts. We have stickers up there. And they also sent us this banner. If you really want to live on crypto, on Bitcoin, they have a ton of assets, then Bitrefill is a great option. And I have a couple other points. We have some upcoming events. This weekend, this Saturday, I am hosting a crypto cruise. It is a sailing experience. Here's the catch. It's a limited boat because there's only, so many seats, and I only have 1 seat available. So if you are free this Saturday from 1 to 5, one of our crypto members, he's a captain. He's going to be taking us all out. His name is Evans. We're going on the crypto cruise. We're also going to try and do this quarterly. So if you can't make it this Saturday, that's okay. It's my birthday. I'll just hate you forever. But we're going to be doing it quarterly, so don't worry about it. And, of course, you can pay in crypto, which is pretty cool. We are also hosting an event on October 11th. This one's going to be a little bit different. It's not crypto focused. It's just kind of tech focused. So it's the San Diego JavaScript group. We're hosting them on October 11th. Same time, same place, same thing. So if you're interested in JavaScript or generally coding and you want to get involved in the crypto tech scene, that would be a really good meetup for you. And other than that, we are also live on YouTube. So hello, YouTube people. If you guys find value in tonight, please share the video with the people around you. So without further ado, I'm going to intro our speaker. He is the CMO of the Orange Pill app, which is you'll hear all about it, but it's a Bitcoin-focused social media platform. And he traveled far to get here. It was a long drive.
Took a while. Wasn't that far, but it took a while.
Yeah, definitely. You know how California goes. Brian, come on up here. Give him a hand. Brian DeMint, everybody.
Thank you. All right. I'll take your phone.
T-shirt.
All right, we good on sound? All right. So I'm not permitted to walk to the front of the stage. I'm very handsy. I'm kind of like Ricky Bobby. It's not because I don't speak publicly. I speak all the time publicly, but I just get really excited. I was feeling really good about this. I was honestly feeling really confident about coming and talking with you guys tonight until Bagna, right? Like 30 seconds. What's your name?
B-O-G-D-A-N, Bogdan.
Yeah, I feel like I said it right. Sorry, apparently I didn't. My bad. I was feeling really good, and he just goes, "Good luck, you're gonna need it." So, yeah, I was like, "Wow, tough audience, huh?" I might have embellished a little bit here, but anyways, yeah. As Madison said, I'm the head of marketing for the Orange Pill app. I'm gonna say it because it sounds way better this way. Amazon best-selling author. Trust me, that is a very low bar to be an Amazon best-selling author. You just got to pick the right categories. Pick the right categories, and you'll be a best-selling author. But last week, the rankings change every few hours, depending on how many books you've sold in that hour. But there was a brief period of time where it was the #2 book in the world on inflation. So that's my claim to fame. So I'm second best. That's what you're getting tonight here at EdgeWallet. Anyways, I'm also a entrepreneur. I started my business with my wife. It's a wellness company. We started in 2008. It's actually in the Inland Empire. We have 3 locations. We're going on a 4th location. It's called Salt and Light. We do cold plunges, red light therapy, all that kind of stuff. So we're really into health and wellness. Been doing that for a long time. That's allowed us to get into the Bitcoin space because running your own business forces you to ask questions like, what is money? One of the other things that I learned along the way was I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I had done Muay Thai, which is a striking art. It's kickboxing. I'd done that for years and years. And I decided I thought I was a really good fighter. And I'm like, I'm going to go test myself. I'm going to go do a cage fight. I've been fighting for 10 years. I've been practicing for 10 years. I'm going to go do a cage fight. And I had trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is ground fighting, submissions and wrestling, that sort of thing. I trained in that for a couple years, but I wasn't proficient at it. So I'm going to show you a clip from my first ever MMA fight. And I was the striker. I was the guy that wanted to keep it standing. My opponent was the ground guy. And let's just watch a quick clip.
He knows that. He's looking for the takedown. He wants to close distance. You know, if you're demanding, you're going to want to keep some distance. Use that. Use your advantages. Let's see how quickly. Oh my God! That was a knockout, almost a flash knockout, but he was able to get back to his feet. He's touching blood right now. Oh my God! That was the 4th head kick that he's taken in this round. He finishes the takedown, but he's in the guillotine now, and it's hard to catch your breath when you're bleeding through your nose. You take him out. He was out.
Boom. Destroyed him. Actually not. I strategically made it fade to black because when they said he's out, it was because there was so much blood that he actually slipped out of the choke. He got up and proceeded to win the fight. So I actually lost this fight. And the moral of the story here was that I actually hurt him pretty bad the first round. The doctor had to come over and check to make sure he was okay. His nose was broken and all sorts. I was doing pretty good. It was actually at the Junior Seau Stadium in Oceanside, and so he was a Marine and it was all Marines that were in the stadium. And so I was coming into hostile territory, and his friend was actually the DJ. And so I had this really cool, I was a WWE fan as a kid, and so I always wanted to come out to like the Hulk Hogan song or some cool song, right? Like that's the best part is the walkout. His friend played Justin Bieber, Baby, Baby, Baby for my walkout. So I had to walk out. Oh man, it was a rough night. But the moral of the story, this part went on way too long. We weren't supposed to camp out here for that long in the presentation. I was all offense. I was absolutely, like I was a pretty good offensive fighter, but I had no defense. My opponent was a very highly trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. This is actually the moment, the fight, the night that I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's because I found that pure offense is gonna wear out. I threw everything I had at him. I mean, I would spar for 2 hours a day, and I wouldn't get tired. I was training with some of the best in the world. This guy, Sean Strickland, who just won the middleweight championship a couple weeks ago, this rib sticks out because he punched me in the back. I trained with like the best fighters in the world day in and day out. The guy that he just had the greatest upset in the UFC history, he was my training partner for this match. So I was feeling really, really, really good going into it. And even though I had all the endurance and the cardio in the world, when you throw everything out and the defense is still standing, that is going to win wars, that's going to win battles, and that's going to strategically win every single time. And so we'll camp out again on that in a moment and how it pertains to Bitcoin. But if you guys know anything about Bitcoin, Bitcoin isn't offensive at all. It does nothing offensive, but it is perhaps maybe the most perfect defense that we've ever seen. R. Buckminster Fuller. Many of you guys have probably seen this quote before. It's my favorite quote. It's my favorite Bitcoin, non-Bitcoin quote. And he said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." I think that's such a beautiful sentiment, and it's exactly what we're doing at Orange Pill app, but it's exactly what Bitcoin is doing. I'm gonna provide the thesis, which you guys, I'm sure because you're sitting in this room, you agree with the thesis that the existing system is failing. And so the sentiment amongst the Bitcoin community is that we need to build that parallel system. And that's essentially what we're trying to build. That's why we go to meetups. That's why we're developing this social network. That's why people put all this time and energy into it. That existing, or that parallel system needs to be built. Sorry. Oh, we're getting a little feedback there, huh? And that's what we're trying to do at Orange Pill app. But it's also why I wrote my book. It's called Bitcoin Evangelism. I don't know, did I mention it's an Amazon bestseller? Like it's a really big deal. No, it's not. But the point of the book, Bitcoin Evangelism, I wrote it for my friends. I got into, Chris outdid me. I've been into Bitcoin. I started studying in 2013, started buying in 2014, but he was like, I was already working in the space then, so I felt kind of small talking to you. But you're ahead of the game, man. I thought I was an OG, but you're far ahead of me. But I wrote this book because I'd been through a few bull cycles, and I was getting the same questions. And if you guys have been through a bull cycle before, you know that your phone blows up every time there's a new news segment, or somebody from high school from 20 years ago has a question because they heard you're the Bitcoin person that they need to talk to. And so I started writing just like it was meant to be a 15, 20 page answers to all of the questions that people have when they're getting into Bitcoin and they're starting to ask questions about crypto and the industry at large. And so it turned into a 300-page book that was designed to walk people through that process from start to finish. So you can pick up different sections. Like the back of the book there's 2 chapters on common questions in Bitcoin and not so common questions in Bitcoin. So like questions like, why won't Bitcoin be like MySpace that gets disrupted by Facebook? You know, those types of questions. How are we properly equipped to answer those questions to our new coiners that are coming in? I don't know if you guys are like me, but I think the next bull market is around the corner. I'm very optimistic. Actually, if we could do a quick survey, who thinks the bull market's happening in 2023? The start of it, not like all of it, but it's starting in 2023. Yeah, all right. Say before the halving, 2024. Where do you guys think? Who's in that category? Okay, late 2024, not till 2025. Anybody? Jeez, we got a bear over here. No, I'm just playing. No, I'd be interested to find out why, because you're optimistic enough to be here, and that's, man, your time preference is low. That's impressive. 2038. That's a real. Okay. So I want to do some orange pilling 101. All right, this isn't what we do at Orange Pill app. This is more of how do we prepare ourselves for the new coiners. The Orange Pill app stuff is about how we network with Bitcoiners once they're there. This is dealing with new coiners. I was on a phone call with Kent Halliburton from SAS Mining. If you don't know SAS Mining, they do 100% renewable energy hosted mining. Really cool service. If you guys are interested in doing hosted mining, they're a cool company to talk to. But he said this in a meeting. Obviously, he didn't create the phrase, but I thought it was really important because we were talking about orange pilling people. He said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. And that would be, in 3 steps, I would say that the most important thing we can do is ask questions. It's critically important when we're orange pilling to ask questions because it's going to allow us to tailor our pitch to our audience. If we don't know who our audience is, if we don't know what brought them to Bitcoin, then we're going to be shooting into the dark. And what I mean by that is I think we get so excited when somebody asks that question, right? It's like this really exciting moment. It's almost like when you're a teenager and like you're dating and they're like asking, hey, do you want to go out? It's almost like that. Now that we're Bitcoin dorks, we feel the same way. Oh my gosh, they're asking questions about Bitcoin. This is so amazing. And then we just shotgun everything at them. We talk about how Bitcoin 21 million is knowable scarcity and how that works and how trustlessness works. And we go into the shotgun blast or the fire hose blast, and we turn off the audience. If we can step back and ask a question, well, hey, why are you asking questions about Bitcoin? Well, you know what? I saw this thing. I'm a big free speech advocate, and I saw this thing that happened in Canada with this trucker rally, and I'm just worried that could happen here. I'm worried that this could happen in my country. Well, great. Let me talk about censorship resistance. Or I'm talking to my stepfather, who's a gold bug. Then I need to go down the 21 million scarcity rabbit hole with him. If he asks about scarcity, and I talk about scarcity, but then I talk about 15 other things at the same time, I'm going to water down the message of Bitcoin. So as we're preparing our message, we need to tailor that message. And third, we need to turn the esoteric into axioms. That's a really confusing way of saying keep it simple. I intentionally structure the sentence that way because we love to talk and show how smart we are as Bitcoiners. I personally do. Like I always want my friends to think, wow, this guy was really ahead of the game. Now, it's fun and it's refreshing sitting in an audience of people that share your opinion because some of that wall comes down a little bit. But when I talk about the esoteric, obviously, esoteric is the things that we all talk about. I'm a pretty ardent Christian, and we call it Christianese in Christian circles. Like you get around some hardcore Christians and things get weird. They start talking about sanctification and baptism. They use these words that people don't understand, and it becomes confusing and turns people off. Well, we do the same thing in the Bitcoin and crypto sphere. We start to use terminology like HODL, which is like the nerdiest thing ever, or I don't know, whatever like degen types of terms that we like to use. And we think it's fun amongst ourselves, but when we use it with the newly initiated or the questioning, it becomes a little complex. So we need to talk in terms of axioms. What's an axiom? An axiom is something that's just plainly apparent on its face. You're never going to win people over. You're not going to win most people over with facts and figures and data, especially if it's just a conversation over coffee. But something like an axiom, something that's plainly apparent, you can. Probably the number one question that I get, I do a lot of orange pilling. I spend a lot of my time orange pilling. And this is the number one question I get, is I can't trust my money to a computer algorithm. And it would be really easy to get into and explain how Bitcoin works and how trustlessness works. I mean, that's really what they're trying to ask. They don't know that they're asking, how do I understand this term trustless? But that's essentially what they're trying to ask, is Bitcoin is trustless. What does that mean? So instead of trying to explain trustlessness, what I would just explain to them are stoplights. You said you don't trust your money with a computer algorithm, and yet every time you drive through an intersection at 45 miles an hour, you're trusting an algorithm with your life, right? The algorithm is, if I'm going north and I have a green light, east and westbound are red lights, right? That's an algorithm. It's beyond the pale of trust. There's nobody waving a wand in the intersection. You're not relying on a human to initiate traffic. You're just allowing an algorithm to play out. And when people realize that they put much more trust or much more faith or much more valuable things on the line, then they start to say, okay, well, maybe I can put my money with an algorithm. that makes a little bit more sense, and that calms it. They might not be won over, but that will calm the nerve a little bit. The next one, can't they just change the code? If you're a Bitcoiner, you've asked this question before. We're supposed to be, like, we came to this industry because we're skeptical people. So I think most of us have asked that question, can they change the code? I think it's really important to keep it simple. This is one we can wax poetic on about why the code can't get changed because it's open source, and like, just use a simple illustration of chess. And I'm gonna defer to my friend Knut Svanholm. I did a Twitter space with him. It was still Twitter at the time, so I'll say Twitter. It was him, Breedlove, Prince, Jeff Booth, and BTC Sessions. And this was his explanation of why you can't change the code. One more time. Oh, that would be it. Let me rewind it here. Uh-oh. Am I messing up? I'm messing up.
No, it's this here. It's not here. It's
No?
just,
Okay.
I don't think. Maybe just play it
All right,
loud.
let's play it.
It's a beautiful conversation. I'd just like to point to another analogy I often use, and that's the rules around chess. If you know how to play chess, you have the network effect of the entire chess community around the globe. So you can play chess with any other chess player and enjoy that game to its fullest. But you can choose to fork chess and play some other type of chess, but that reduces the number of players you can play with significantly. So you can play chess catch on a board that's too large with too few pieces on it with a couple of friends, or you can play chess theorem, which changes the rules all the time, and you can play chess Nero, where no one knows where the pieces are on and you can play all of these stupid other sorts of chess, but it doesn't matter. And even if, like, some big centralized chess association told every chess player in the world that pawns can move 3 steps now instead of 2 in the beginning, no one would play by those rules either, because you need the consensus, you need the players, you need the users to agree on this fixed set of rules. So this is what Bitcoin is, and chess has changed over the years. The fact that pawns move 2 steps, the first move, that they can do that, is because it was convenient and better for every chess player. So that emerged out of the existing rules, and everyone agreed that it was a good change. And the longest chain, proof of work chain, wins. So this is what Bitcoin is. It's just an agreement on a fixed set of rules.
All right. He did a good job, right? Man. It's, if you want, thank you. If you want that video, it's on our YouTube page. It's just, yeah, you just go to Orange Pill app on YouTube, and it's on there. I think it's a great thing to send to people. But in conversation, I don't think most of us are going to be able to articulate that quite as well as Knut did. He wrote the book, Everything Divided by 21 Million. If you guys have heard of, Bitcoin Infinity Day, like, it came out of his book, Everything Divided by 21 Million. He's a really interesting guy. But what I would say is, going back to this, keep it simple, chess. Like, you and I can sit down and play a game of chess. And it doesn't matter that somebody in Bangladesh is playing a version of chess where all the pieces can move anywhere on the board at any time. That has no impact on the version of chess that you and I are playing right now. So you can make it as articulate and brilliant as Knut did, or you could dumb it down and simple as, it's decentralized, it's open source. The version of chess that we agree on is this one that we play where pawns, not poems, sorry, move 2 spaces. Sorry, the AI is really good there. 2 spaces instead of 3, or whatever it happens to be. And if we were to go to a chess tournament, this is where you can kind of bring in the idea of consensus if you want to go down that road. But if we were to go to a chess tournament and I play a version where any piece can move anywhere, then I'm going to be laughed out of the tournament, right? The consensus of the tournament, as soon as I sit down and I start to move my bishop forward and backwards or side to side or whatever I want to do with it, they're going to say, you cannot do that. You're not allowed to play in this tournament, right? That's how consensus works. And so you can use some of these axiomatic explanations for things like Bitcoin. So let's get past that. So how does a paradigm shift? One of my favorite chapters from the book, and so if you don't read any of the any of the book, you can go on my YouTube page, and I have the whole first chapter in audio format. It's just Brian Dement, and you can get the first chapter on there. We go through historical cases of different technologies and the adoption that they faced, and mostly in terms of the resistance of adoption that they faced. I think as Bitcoiners, we've talked through, what are the similarities to electricity and automobiles and things like that. But I think it's really interesting to break down some of the nuances that they experienced through that growth pattern. The uncomfortable feeling that you have being a Bitcoin hodler right now, that's the feeling of being early. When we walk into a room, I don't know if there's ever been a room in my life that hasn't been electrified, right? All the rooms, maybe on a job site, maybe I've been to a room, when I worked construction as a college kid, maybe there wasn't electricity there, but like almost every room that I've ever walked into has been an electrified room. The paradigm around electricity shifted because of an invention that happened, but there was a time where no rooms were electrified, and now we're in a time where every room is electrified. So we presuppose that that transition was easy, but that transition was anything but easy. There was actually a lot of fear-mongering propaganda. This piece in the background was actually anti-electricity propaganda, and you could just go on Google and type in anti-electricity propaganda. There's all sorts of ads of like newspaper ads that say, "Man picks up telephone, dies from shock." You can find all these things to scare people away. Guess what? It was Rockefeller and the kerosene industry that were coming after him, by the way. Makes it kind of interesting. But there were dangerous uses that rightfully so fueled the doubt of adoption. So if you were to go back to 1890 or 1900 and you were to look around at some of the inventions that were being made, you would say, this technology is really dangerous. It'd be really easy to ignore the incandescent light bulb or the washing machine that was freeing people's time to do other more productive things. It was really easy to ignore those things. Even though you could see them in action, the other inventions were just so freaking dangerous that you could be selective about it. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of the electrical spray and vapor bath. Anybody used one of those? No. Shocker. I mean, pun intended, I guess. It was a bathtub that was electrified. So you would cure your mental disease or ailments or whatever it was by hooking up a cord with no sheathing, by the way, no breakers, no grounding. You hook up a cord, and it would, I read over the patent in the book, and it says, gently runs currents of electricity to provide all sorts of cures for ailments that you might, it's like, yeah, it cured your ailments because you're dead, like you don't have cancer anymore because you killed everything. But rightfully so, the skeptic could say, the electric spray and vapor bath is dangerous, therefore electricity is dangerous. Do you see any similarities between that and Bitcoin? Automobiles. The skeptic could have rightfully pointed to the fact that there were legislative roadblocks that fueled doubters. Does anybody know what the early speed limits of inner city, like in the city speed limits were? It was 12 miles an hour. It's like if you bought an automobile, you were allowed to drive 12 miles an hour in the city. You know what you could crank it up to in the countryside? 15, dude. Smoke them out there, right? So, I mean, how funny is that? You have a vehicle that can now travel faster than the horse, and yet the laws throttled it back. And beyond that, you actually, if you were in a really densely populated city, and you had flag laws, where basically that means a train, if a train came through your city, the trains would have flag boys that would walk in front of the train and say, like, because they didn't have guardrails and stuff like that. They'd say, look out, train coming, train coming. Well, that legislation was pushed on the automobile. So if you had an automobile, not only was fuel really expensive to get, and if your car broke, it was really expensive to fix it, but you actually had to hire a flag boy to walk in front of your car to say, Chris is coming, Chris is coming. And he just had to make people walk out of the way, like push people, like make sure people get out of the way. And guess what? It didn't matter that you had 12-mile-an-hour speed limits. You actually were kind of, in so facto, like 6 miles an hour or like 5 miles an hour, because that was the walking speed of the flag boy that you had to hire. So rightfully so, the doubters could point to legislation and they would rationally be able to say, the automobile will never change the paradigm of transportation. You were actually kind of crazy to think that it would. The internet. The internet there was doubters of the internet. Of course, there was people that tried to legislate things around the internet, or people that said it was dangerous. But really, the internet, the biggest pushback on, if you went back to the late 1980s or early 1990s, any of the big proponents of the internet that said it was going to change how information was transferred, those people were laughed at because they said too many people are ignorant of what the internet even is. I forget who it was. It was somebody that had to do with the US Patent Office, but they said that paradigm shifting technologies don't involve retraining 250 million people. Like, that sounded absurd that you would have to retrain 250 million people to use the internet because it was so complicated. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Today Show clip. You guys, who's seen the Today Show clip about where they're talking about the internet? It's a great clip. These people are at the bleeding edge of culture, right? They know, like they're literally supposed to share what is like going on in society, and yet there was so much ignorance around what the internet was that this is them talking about it. Oh, sorry, I forgot where. Oh. I'll stand over here again. I don't think that helped, but this is a good vibe. So.
See, that's what I said. Katie said she thought it was a bot. Yeah. Oh. But I've never heard it. I've never heard it said. I've never seen the mark, but never heard it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC. See, there it is. Violence at NBC, GE com. I mean,
What Allison should know,
what
when
is
you say that,
internet
Allison,
anyway?
internet is that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? How does one get? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it to communicate with, I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What is it?
What does it mean?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's
You
like
looked
a
in the
computer
dictionary.
billboard. Right. Right.
And others can access it.
Right.
Just
It came
for,
in really handy during the quake. A lot of people, that's how they were communicating out to tell family and loved ones they were okay because all the phone lines were down.
I was telling Katie,
But you don't need that. You don't need a phone line to operate the internet.
So that's just I think it shows kind of where people were at with the internet. Like, the critic could have rightfully pointed to the internet and said, there's no way this will change every element of our life. At that time, there was internet users and there was internet abstainers. But are there any internet abstainers? Aside from the Amish, there's no internet abstainers. I think even some of them have come around. I think the Amish even kind of use the internet now. But yeah, you could rightfully point to the ignorance being the factor. So I think that those are things that we see that are very relevant to Bitcoin today. Danger didn't stop electricity. Legislation didn't stop the automobile. Ignorance didn't stop the internet. Why not? Because there's plenty of things that have been invented that were actually good inventions, but they didn't change the world. Because the technology was revolutionary, part one, and there was a social layer that developed around it, right? Electricity, there was world fairs, there was energy conventions, there was groups of scientists that were pushing forward the technology and building it from the research and development side, but there was also the novelty of sideshows and things like that where people coalesced around it. The automobile clubs were a big thing. Racing clubs were a big thing in the early days that propagated the utility of the automobile. And even today, you see car shows and things like that. That was from the early days of the car industry. And the internet, the cryptographers, the cypherpunks, the early internet was adopted by a group of people and propagated because of the social layer that developed around it. We're witnessing a perfect storm right now. And it's actually really exciting. Like, when you sit back, I think these things are really important to think through periodically, especially when we're in bear markets, because it can just feel so arduous. And aside from our 2038 time preference, you got a really low time preference here.
Just when Unix fails.
It's really, I think it's encouraging to think through, if we're going back to this chess analogy that has whatever, I'm kind of using it for a different reason here. But our opponents or the system or the things there's only so many moves that can be made, and we're starting to see a checkmate materialize here. We have the world's first digitally native money. That's what Bitcoin represented. We have, of course, there's other digital forms of money, but they weren't digitally native. They don't only live and breathe on the internet. They're more like messaging services. And the first time in history that we've been able to decentralize something. When people ask me why was Bitcoin so revolutionary, I don't say because it's a new kind of ledger system. I mean, there's all sorts of answers you could give, but the answer that I give is that we were finally able, as humanity, we were able to decentralize something. Like, we figured out how to take human fallibility out of the power hierarchy or the power structure. The American experiment was probably the best that we had before that, and some of the democracies and the constitutional republics that have arisen around the world was probably the closest we ever got. I mean, we have a great system. I mean, if you think about it, there's a set of rules in the Constitution, and then there's 3 branches of government that check and balance each other to make sure that those rules get enforced. Now, that's a pretty dang good system, and it persists as a pretty good system, but why is it not perfect? It's not perfect because of human corruption. It's imperfect because of human fallibility. That's what makes Bitcoin really, really interesting, because it's that same set of rules. It has the same checks and balances, but the one fundamental flaw in all systems before is that it removes human fallibility. We don't have to trust in anything other than axioms. We don't have to trust in anything other than math. If you believe that 1 + 1 = 2, you should believe that Bitcoin can decentralize consensus. Worldwide sovereign debt crises, which we'll camp out on for just a moment here, and lost trust in national currencies. Worldwide sovereign debt crises. Again, let's try to speak in plain language for people. How do you, let me go back. You guys are already reading my thing. I see it. How do you give the umph? Because when we say, guess what? Before COVID, we were only 29 trillion in debt. Now we're 33 trillion in debt. People are like, yeah, that's a lot of money. I get it. Like, that's a lot. But it doesn't hit, right? Like, even for us, that doesn't hit. But when you say it like this, I think it does. If you made $500,000 a day, every day, since the day the Great Pyramids were completed or built, you'd only have about 3/4 of what the US has borrowed since June. Not June of 2022 or June of 2021, like 3 months ago, June. Imagine $500,000 a day, every day, since the Great Pyramids. You wouldn't even have what we borrowed since June. That gives a little gravitas to the problem that we're seeing, and the US is in the best position. Like, that's the crazy, if everybody else is really screwed, this is the shining example of a good system right here. And then we have lost trust in national currencies. Fed Chairman Powell, I don't know if you guys caught it when he was before Congress, but he said the quiet part out loud. Don't you just love when they say the quiet part out loud? Like, that's so, so good. He said in front of Congress, because he didn't have flashcards, and I think somebody forgot to oil his robot parts. He said our currency, and inflation, he said too, is a faith-based system. He said it. He said it's faith-based. Okay, so our currency is only as good as if people put value in it or not. And I don't think that's a bad answer. I think that was actually a pretty good answer. It's just he's not supposed to say that part. And you pair that with Henry Ford. You guys like the Henry Ford quote? I think Bitcoiners probably have seen the Henry Ford quote before. He said, it's well enough that the people, and he said this over 100 years ago, it's well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be revolution before tomorrow morning. So one of the captains of industry said that if people understand the way this works, and he wrote this, I think, a little while after the Federal Reserve was created. He said, he was looking at it like he probably didn't get to be a part of it, and he's probably kind of pissed off. If people get this, if people understand what just happened, change will happen tomorrow. The paradigm will shift tomorrow if people understand it. But what did Fed Chairman Powell say? He just told everybody that the system's a sham. It's faith-based. What is the most popular song in the world right now? Does anybody know? I'm just going to say it because I hope you don't say the wrong thing and then fact check me on that. Rich Men North of Richmond. Anybody heard that song? It's a good song. It's a banger. Listen to it on the way home. Rich Men North of Richmond. I don't cuss, so I'm not going to say the quote. But the most popular song in the world, I think in 24 hours, it got like 10 million downloads, and it's up to hundreds of millions of downloads. Joe Rogan's had the guy on his podcast. The crescendo of the song, the guy says, and the dollar ain't, I'm not gonna, S-H-I-T, right? He said that the most popular song in the world right now says the dollar is garbage. The head of the central bank said this 100 years ago. He said if people wake up to this, change will happen. People are ready to opt out and ready to move to a new system. The problem is, and I spend Bitcoin every single day. I spend Bitcoin every single day, whether it's expenses for my company, I buy my meat through a Bitcoin guy, through Orange Pill app. There's all sorts of people that we hired our lawyer through Orange Pill app. We found him on the app. I spend Bitcoin every single day, and it breaks my heart to say it, but the parallel economy still doesn't exist, right? That R. Buckminster Fuller quote of you need to build the new system. The system's being built, but it's not at capacity yet. And that's what we're trying to do with Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. It's good. It's a good. I didn't make it. I'm the head of marketing. I didn't even come up with that. That would have been good. Now, the reason you'll see this here, Google Play and the APK, if we just got sued by Orange, which is a telecommunications company in France, they own the word orange. They took us out of the Google App Store because we have orange in our name. So fiat companies doing fiat things. And so anyways, yeah, so if you're on Google, you can go to our website and download the app through the APK. We're still in the Apple App Store, which is great. We even changed Orange Pill, one word. They're like, no, that's not good enough. But we blasted them on Twitter recently and got a little viral campaign going. And the compromise they said they would do, they said, okay, we'll let you have because we're not in the US App Store, we're in the rest of the world App Store. They said, we'll give you the US App Store if you take yourself out of the rest of the world. Like that was their compromise. We're like, it's not a compromise. So anyways, we're fighting the man right now. But we're stacking sats, stacking friends that stack sats. This is me, Mateo, the founder of the company, and my uncle. And we were just hanging out at Pacific Bitcoin. I'm just kidding. No, it's Michael Saylor. He's kind of all of our Uncle Michael. But anyways, this was me at Pacific Bitcoin last year. I was just an upstart Bitcoin author, and I was going to the conference, which is next week, by the way. If you're not doing anything, it's in Santa Monica. It's actually a really cool conference. But I just walked up to Mateo's booth. I'm like, I'm a Bitcoiner. This is cool. I'd like to meet other Bitcoiners in my area, and I'd like to just start developing like real life connections with other Bitcoiners. I actually think that's something really valuable. That's cool that there's finally an app where people are doing that. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are all in real life. So I'm sitting there, I'm getting the pitch from Mateo, and I've got his undivided attention, and I feel somebody brush up next to me and kind of bumping me out of the way, and then Mateo's not paying attention to me at all, and of course, it's Michael Saylor. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like me and Michael Saylor are getting the pitch for Orange Pill app together. And so they decide to take a picture, and his marketing girl says, hey, come on, like jump in the picture real quick. Well, I'm 6'5", so my stupid fat head blocked, like photo bombed his thing right there. So for the next 2 weeks, I was meeting people through the app, and I just felt really, really bad. So I was retweeting them, and I was telling people about my experience, and they were getting a lot of signups from it. And so Mateo said, hey, do you want to take over our Twitter for 2 weeks? I just met him at the conference. And he goes, do you want to take over our Twitter? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And they got more signups. He goes, 2 weeks later, he said, do you want to be the head of marketing for our app? Sure. Show up to Bitcoin conferences, right? Like, just make yourself available, and then you'll get hired and your dreams will come true, and then Michael Saylor will be your uncle. We're building the social layer of Bitcoin through in real life connections. Online's critically important, like Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, whatever you guys use. It's really important. Like that whole component is really important. Nostr is obviously a big one. Anybody on Nostr? Anybody doing the Nostr thing right now? Yep, we got some hardcores. I have a Nostr, but I don't know. I don't use it that much. But it's censorship-resistant communication. I think it's important. But the component that's missing in the parallel economy, in the parallel social network, is the in real life connections. So we use approximate geolocation, so you can find other Bitcoiners that are in your area. When you populate the app, it's going to show you the profiles of the people that are closest to you. Now it's approximate. Like if me and Kurt, if Kurt and I open the app right now, we're a few feet away from each other. It's going to say we're 10 miles or 15 miles away from each other. So it's going to show us that we're close enough to other people so that I could connect with somebody to grab coffee, grab lunch, whatever. But it's not going to show me like, this is where Kurt's house is. Go $5 wrench attack him right now. You can toggle that off too. So if you don't want location services on, you don't have to do that, of course, at all. It's a Bitcoin company. We know all about privacy. We're the single largest repository for Bitcoin-only events. This event was on the app, thanks to Kurt. You can add it. And one of the cool features you have here is we have zaps. If you don't know what zaps are, it's just the ability to use Lightning to send Bitcoin to people through the app. So we use other wallet infrastructure. It can be any other wallet infrastructure that uses Lightning, and we integrate that into the app. So it's a really cool experience when you're in a social network and you went out to lunch with somebody and you're like, oh, let me pay you back. You just click a button, and in 2 seconds, you've paid them back permissionless with Bitcoin. We have a new cool feature where we wrote some code where we can just push a button and zap everybody in the app. And so we'll just do that, and like every day, my wallet's in the app too. So like every day I wake up, I'm like, oh, I got sent some sats just for being in the app. So it's cool. We try to do fun initiatives to make it so people are starting to use Lightning, that are starting to use Bitcoin for its intended purpose of peer-to-peer electronic value transfer. One of the coolest things that we have coming up on our roadmap is our orange pages. This is where we have a partnership lined up with BTC Maps, and you'll be able to find all of the Bitcoin businesses or all of the businesses that accept Bitcoin in your area. So BTC Maps has existed, and they have a really cool service. If you haven't checked it out, you can find those businesses right now. But with the app, they'll be all in one. It'll be one integrated experience, and there'll be a more social element to it. But we'll be able to orange pill a lot of businesses because we're going to bring the demand side of the equation. We have thousands and thousands of paying users in the app. It's a few bucks a month for the app, but what that does is it filters out spammers, scammers, and bots. It's really the only way you can filter out all of the noise of crypto Twitter. So, I mean, if you have a beautiful woman DM you on Twitter, I hate to tell you fellas, it's usually not real, but when it's on Orange Pill app, there's a paywall to filter that out. So, did I hear somebody groan? Like, she's not real. Going back to my earlier point about MMA, what makes Bitcoin magic is that it has the ability to make us anti-fragile. Make yourself anti-fragile. Bitcoin, censorship-resistant money. Nostr, plenty of other open source online communication tools that you can use. Censorship-resistant online connections. Orange Pill app, censorship-resistant in real life connections. I mean, you can make the argument, and I do because I market for Orange Pill app, that person-to-person connection is actually the most censorship-resistant form of contact that you can possibly have. Yes, it can be censored, but you have to censor somebody with jail, right? It's not just as easy as cutting off their internet connection or as far as, as easy as shutting down a messenger account. You actually have to get the person and put them in jail to censor that relationship. A very, very difficult prospect, especially in jurisdictions like the one that we have. In real life connections are critically important. Am I past time, Madison? Yeah. Okay, all right, we're wrapping up. I think that everyone should have an optimistic and a pessimistic model for CBDs. You guys pretty pumped about the CBDCs coming out? Fed now. Yeah, Fed now. They're gonna have a sweet commercial. It's gonna be like a guy like at the end with the thumbs up. I think we should have an optimistic and pessimistic model for CBDCs. I actually have an optimistic model. I think that, I don't think CBDCs are gonna be great, but I think it's gonna be good for Bitcoin. I think it's gonna be the world's best marketing strategy for Bitcoin ever when you have government-issued digital currency. It's gonna legitimize Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will flourish uninhibited because it'll run tangentially or run parallel to the CBDCs that emerge. And if we accomplish our goal as Bitcoiners, and certainly with what we're trying to do with the Orange Pill app, if we can develop that Bitcoin circular economy where people are buying and trading services, and guess what? It's happening, guys. It's starting to happen. Like I said, I buy my meat or buy my, we buy legal services and stuff in Bitcoin. Every day, there's more people using Bitcoin through our app and other apps that are stimulating that circular economy. I think that's just going to grow and grow and grow. And what happens if you're at the ground floor? Like the people that bought Bitcoin in 2011, obviously they got to see the value appreciation of their Bitcoin. I still think we're early. Like anybody that says we're not early, I'm gonna make a case here in just a second for why I think we're still incredibly early. But if you feel like you missed out on the big wave, the big boom up of Bitcoin, you haven't. But if you're worried about it, guess what? You're on the ground floor of the circular economy. We're just starting now. This is the infancy of the circular economy. Think back to the internet economy. What are the guys that rode the wave of the internet economy? What are they doing right now for fun? They literally launch rockets into outer space for kicks and giggles. Like that's what they do for fun. It's like they rode the wave of the internet, and now in their spare time they shoot things into the unknown. Like there's incredible potential for wealth generation, not by holding Bitcoin, not just by holding Bitcoin, but by participating in the economy. That economy itself has value. So that's the optimistic model. The pessimistic model is CBDCs are the most tyrannical thing ever, and you need to eat cricket meat for your lunch, dinner, and breakfast, and that's your only option. The only way to opt out of that system will be by having shaken a rancher's hand that accepts Bitcoin, right? The value proposition of having shaken a rancher's hand in real life, or knowing somebody that can fix your computer in real life, that value proposition will never have been higher than if the CBDCs come out and we have the pessimistic model that hits. So one way or the other, I think you're pretty set within real life connections. I want to run through this real quick. How big will Bitcoin get? We're freaking early, guys. Capital flow inertia, I have a whole chapter on this in the book. In the 2017 bull run, $6 billion of new capital accounted for $159 billion in increased market capitalization. One of the biggest misconceptions about market cap is that $1 in increases the market cap by $1. That's not true. If we understand capital flow inertia, the velocity at which capital flows in based on the available supply of the given asset, you can have many, many multiples. So when people say, oh, the BlackRock ETF, only like $1 billion is going to come in, so the market cap's only going to increase by $1 billion, those people are failing to understand capital flow inertia. The example I'll give to that, analog maps. In the biggest year of business for analog paper maps, it accounted for $40 million in economic activity. Digital maps account for $200 billion. The same thing, just the digital version of it, accounts for $200 billion of annual business. Why? Because entire industries wouldn't exist without digital maps. Lyft, Uber, Amazon Logistics, UPS Logistics, air travel, everything that we do. I drove down here in my car and Waze told me more efficient ways to get here that if I had paper maps, that would not have existed. Now, if you went back to 1985, when paper maps were at their peak of their power, right? The big paper map industry, where it was at the peak of their power, and you were trying to project out how big can the paper map industry get? How big can the map industry get? You would have said, well, maybe if the world's population doubles in 40 years or 50 years, then maybe we'll get to $80 million, right? And if we have slightly better maps, maybe we'll get to $90 million. We think linearly. But what we fail to understand is that the world's need for navigation, you would have bet that it was only $40 million, but what actually is the case is the world's demand for navigation was actually more like $200 billion. We just didn't have the technology to unlock it. And so when you have something analog, like gold and fiat currencies, it sounds absurd to say that it's going to increase by 4 orders of magnitude, but that's the base case. It's actually probably much higher than $200 billion of digital map business that happens. Same thing with encyclopedias. It was a $70 million business. Google alone, which isn't everything in that industry, has an increase of 3 orders of magnitude. It wasn't that our desire for knowledge was only $70 million. The true capacity was something greater than 3 orders of magnitude. And of course, AI is going to increase this as well. What happens to money when we have a better, more nimble form of money? When hyperbitcoinization arrives, you're going to ask yourself 2 things. How many sats do I have? And how many in real life Bitcoin connections do I have? That's all I got for you guys.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's do a Q&A. I know there's probably some questions. Also, great
Over
job.
here.
Thank you.
You do great
Bogdan,
up there.
question.
So I just wanted to ask, like, what's Bitcoin anyway?
What's Bitcoin? Beautiful.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh, I thought you
Actually,
wanted like a orange pilly answer. Dude, you walked into the wrong building, huh? No, I'm just kidding.
No, that was just introduction.
We've had 2 introductions
so
and neither one of them have
I'm
gone
just-
well. I really like you though.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna be friends.
Thank you. What's your estimate as to, when you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy coffee with Bitcoin in like 90% of coffee places in the US, for example.
When do I think that's
what's
gonna
your
be?
estimate? Yeah, that's the first question. And the second one is, I mean, maybe it's obvious, but still curious to hear your thoughts. Is the Lightning specifically something that will allow us to do that? So do you presume that everybody will use Lightning to scale Bitcoin?
Yeah. I mean, how many people in here have used Lightning? By show of hands. It's okay if you haven't. It's fine. Yeah, I think most Bitcoiners probably haven't, or people in crypto haven't used Lightning. And that's just one of the things where like, I'll be glad to send you 10,000 sats before we leave, just so you can have that experience. It's really cool. That's actually probably the easiest way I orange pill people, and I'll get to your question. But rather than explaining all the stupid stuff I just said up there, I'll just sit down here, download a wallet. Cool, let me zap you. Wow, that was fast, because I heard Bitcoin, my coffee was gonna be cold by the time I got my, my payment or whatever. That's, I think, maybe why you brought up the coffee shops. I think coffee shops, I think that the escape velocity will happen in 5 years. That sounds like pretty ambitious, but it's a slowly then suddenly thing. That's how exponential technologies work. Nothing happens until it happens, and then it goes berserk, right? Same thing with internet adoption, all that kind of stuff. And I actually think that's one of my passions. That's why I said yes to come on and work at Orange Pill App, was because of the orange pages that I talked about there. We're gonna be able to apply positive peer pressure to businesses that don't accept Bitcoin yet. So we're gonna be able to go into those coffee shops and show a demand side of the equation. Like, hey, there's 50 people in your local community that are Bitcoiners. If you accept Bitcoin, I don't know if you know how Bitcoin works, but Bitcoiners buy things in Bitcoin if you're championing their cause. So you're gonna get yourself 50 new customers. And if we're in a bull run, the app we have is like a cross section of like the people with the most buying power anywhere on planet Earth. So we have an app. Edge Wallet's gonna be in the same boat. Their customers are all they're gonna have a cross section of customers that are people with the most buying power on planet Earth. Do you think the coffee shop's gonna wanna start accepting Bitcoin? I think they will. And I think actually Orange Pill App gets to be a part of that, facilitating that process. Yeah.
How many users do you have currently on the app?
We are at 7,400 paying users right now, which by social network standpoint, that sounds like a pretty small number. But like I said, we have a paywall. So every single one of the users is a high quality, high signal user. And we're less than a year old. We're about 9 months old right now. Most of those 7,000 users, about 5,000 are from the last 3 months though. So we're seeing a kind of exponential growth in that. Even with, I was just telling Kurt before this, the Google Play Store thing has been kind of hurting us for the last 2 weeks since that happened. Yeah, can't find in the Google Play Store. Yeah, you won't find. But so if you go to orangepillapp.com or theorangepillapp.com, you'll see the file. You can download it still. But yeah. So, we're seeing pretty good growth in that department. And I think once the maps goes online, or excuse me, the orange pages goes online, I think that's where we're going to see the biggest increase in user growth. Kurt?
Brian, maybe just mention the advantage of going through the website to buy in sats versus giving Apple fiat.
Yeah, so we legitimately want people to pay in sats. When you go through the App Store or the Google Play Store and you pay for it, we get the funds 90 to 120 days later. So it's not, the payment is so slow with how it works. When you pay in sats, we get it immediately. So if you go through the orangepillapp.com or sign up .theorangepillapp.com, you'll see an option to pay in Bitcoin. And it's really beautiful seeing that side-by-side comparison between the fiat model and the Bitcoin model, and it's just night and day different. It goes directly into our treasury if you pay in sats, and we don't know if we're ever gonna get the money because there might be some weird thing with the trademark infringement by that point, so who knows.
Any other questions? All right. Cool. Oh, one over here.
I've been involved with Bitcoin since about 2014, and I got into it just for political reasons. And one of my big frustrations in this whole Bitcoin adventure of mine, I listen to a lot of, I've been listening to a lot of, YouTube, Michael Saylor. I'm familiar with a lot of the issues you've been talking about. What I have a lot of frustration is my fear of dealing with the technology. I may be of the age where I didn't grow up with computers, and that's probably a big part of it. But I'm terrified of pushing a button and having something happen unintentionally. And I've gone through, I've self-custody a wallet, and I've, gotten my seed phrases in order. I could put that much together, but this whole business about lightning networks and understanding how nodes fit into the function of what I should be doing and why I should be involved, and hearing the overall picture of the benefits of Bitcoin, I feel I understand just from an emotional, from a political point of view. But I'm wondering, is there any way for people to get really comfortable? Like you said, like I'd send you these sats, but it's that hand holding, it's that feeling of who can you trust to kind of teach you and be open with your information and still get enough comfort with this whole thing. Not to mention, even if you're proselytizing, for Bitcoin and you're evangelist, you don't want to do it unless you understand, at least I don't want to do it unless I really understand the intricacies. I don't do any coding. I don't even understand really much about it, although I did take a course in BASIC back in college. But it's still very frustrating to me, and I'm wondering, I did sign up for the Orange Pill app. I think I heard about it on some podcast. I don't know, Simply Bitcoin, or someone was mentioning it. And I thought that was a really good idea to network. But I still, when I get on these things, I just don't feel comfortable getting out into the real world and learning about it. And I'm wondering if there's any good resources you might suggest for that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. I think that as technologies develop and Edge Wallet and companies are building better and more, incrementally we're going to get better facing, user-facing type of technology or platforms to facilitate these types of transactions. That's just going to get better. My mom didn't adopt the internet. She never mentally adopted the internet. She never said, I'm adopting the internet. She watches Netflix now. She thinks it's cable. She doesn't realize that the engine beneath the hood is the internet now. And I think that's what needs to happen, and that's what's going to happen with the technology, is people are going to be interacting with it. I think you're going to open your banking apps or whatever it happens to be, and they're going to be using Bitcoin as payment rails under the hood. So it might get to the point, I actually think it's going to get to the point where you don't necessarily even need to know the intricacies of Bitcoin in order to facilitate it or actually use it. Now, for somebody like you, that's doing it for political reasons, or I share that kind of sentiment, is that I'm a freedom maximalist and I want to preserve my wealth. Then yes, I think it's something that just takes time. I think it's exactly what you're doing, is spending your time learning about it. In jiu-jitsu, I had to get tapped out 10,000 times to get a black belt. I have a black belt now in jiu-jitsu. I'm a master in jiu-jitsu now. It wasn't that I had to tap people out 10,000 times. I had to lose 10,000 rounds to get to a black belt. It's just you got to wear the losses along the way, and at some point it'll start to make sense and it'll start to click. I legitimately think that my book's a good option, but there's other really good books out there and stuff too. By the way, I'm going to be on Simply Bitcoin tomorrow morning, so I'll be talking about Orange Pill app. Yeah.
If I may as well, Edge is actually implementing, well, we have real humans behind our support team. Daniel's one of our awesome support members. Michael as well. And they do live, he's not here, but that's kind of where they work. We offer in-person support. We have people come into our office just to understand, just to get that hands-on, help. We're going to be implementing something called Edge Mint, which is going to be, you pay a small amount per month, but you get that hands-on support We're going to do some video options. So if you can't come into the office, you can video chat with us, and we won't allow you to share your screen with us and, accidentally show us something that we shouldn't see. So I hear you, and I appreciate you sharing that with everybody. But yeah, we hear you, and there's companies out there who are trying to make it work, like what we're doing here.
Don't you think that when they implement the ETFs, because I think there's about 12 of them now, that most people that are not comfortable with cryptocurrency, what they'll do is they'll go to their broker and they'll take care of all of that. And I think that's really where the big adoption is going to come from. I know it doesn't sound like the coolest thing in the world, but I write contracts on the blockchain. That's what I do. But I'm telling you, if you don't watch your security, if you don't implement something special, there's a hacker for every alphabet out there, that comes in and they'll take your money, or they'll get into your wallet, or, you made a mistake, or, there's a website that looks like what you were doing, or so on and so forth. So, I think and you're not alone in it just because of being a boomer, that's a fear of a lot of people. So I think that when they do that, as awful as it sounds, because the big boys are going to take over, that'll make it easier. Do you agree? Or?
I agree. And I think it just happened to Mark Cuban last week. I think he lost $1 million of crypto, and he's a guy that made his money in tech, right? So yes, you're absolutely right. And I think that, yes, it depends how you define adoption, but yeah, as far as Bitcoin price go up, I think absolutely. I think the ETFs are going to soak up a lot of that available Bitcoin supply. And hopefully, what I hope happens, and I think I've seen this, and maybe you guys have seen this if you've been through a few bull runs, people keep it on Coinbase or they keep it on Binance or whatever. They do that, and eventually they start to self-custody. And I think that hopefully the ETFs act as a gateway for that, so that as better security and better wallets and wallets continue to evolve, people will feel comfortable with that user experience of then, okay, you know what, I've held my Bitcoin for 4 years, maybe I'm going to start to take a portion of it off. Not enough to where I'm going to lose my life savings, but you just need to handle a little bit to get comfortable with it. I think that's kind of the gateway drug to mass adoption. Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up with that question. I'm sure you can find Brian on the Orange Pill app, though, if you want to ask him any other questions. So let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.
I did want to mention you can use promo code HODL for a discount on Pacific Bitcoin tickets. If you are interested in going to Pacific Bitcoin, it's the conference next week in Santa Monica. Natalie Brunel gave me a code to share with everybody. So code HODL, that's HODL. I think it's like, yes.
So I wanted to make an announcement for Pacific Bitcoin.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Hello. If you're going to be at Pacific Bitcoin, Ben Askren, if you know who that is, he's an Olympic wrestler, MMA star. He and I are running the Orange Pill app $5 wrench attack seminar. So everybody makes fun of Orange Pill app, like, oh, you're gonna get yourself, doxxed, and you're gonna find, people are gonna $5 wrench attack you. Well, we have a professional MMA fighter that's gonna come teach you some Brazilian jiu-jitsu and self-defense. So if you want to come roll with us, we'll be at that. So sign up through their link, and let's get there.
Yep. Promo code HODL for a discount on that ticket. And I believe there's also going to be a ladies' happy hour. So for the ladies in the room, love to see you here.
Oh, wait. You mean it's not you get to show up and hang out with all the ladies? I thought that's what it was. Ladies' happy hour, right?
I want to give away 3 shirts tonight. I have 3 Bit Refill shirts. And I have 3 trivia questions to see who is listening the best. Okay, so first person to say the answer. In what category was Brian the number 2 bestseller of? It was a category specifically. Inflation. Yes. 1 t-shirt for you.
Boom.
Okay, you can't answer the next question. How many dollars a day would you have to spend since the creation of the pyramids? 500,000. All right. Okay, 2 shirts are ready. And then what is the name of the most popular song right now? I think it was Kurt. Kurt, you got the third t-shirt. Also, just so you guys know, I do want to shout out to people, our volunteer over here, Andrew. He runs our audiovisual. He's amazing. He owns a media company. If you need any videos done, he's your guy. And also Kurt for setting up Brian as our speaker. Yeah, if you want to get involved, yeah, give it up for Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
If you want to get involved, helping us find speakers, if you have any way you want to be involved, reach out to me, and yeah, we can get you involved. So yeah, you guys mean a lot to us. So thank you so much, Chris.
Anybody have any? We usually do a lightning round at the end. So if anybody has anything that they're working on or wants to talk about what they're interested in, we give you approximately 60 seconds, and then we give you the old hook off the stage. So if you have anything that you're interested in talking about or working on, please feel free to make your way up to the stage and make an announcement. And in the meantime, I think we're still planning our October one, but next month's event might fall on Halloween. We were just talking about it. It's a Tuesday, so we'll have to see. We might
Maybe
be
we'll
keeping
do a
with the
party.
orange theme.
Does anyone have anything they want to share with the class?
MoneyGram started using USDC yesterday. Okay, thank you for that.
Anything? It doesn't have to be crypto. Project you're working on, looking to hire, looking for a new job.
If you're not doing anything, that's fine too. You can stay quiet and hide and talk to us afterwards. That's fine. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. Please feel free to grab a drink and hang out and mingle. And then Madison will turn our lights off and start kicking you out.
You'll know when it's time to leave. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming. See you next month.